Welcome to the Legal Insurrection podcast. Today is January 9th, and this is episode 19. I am Kimberly Kay. I'm the editorial and operations director with the Legal Insurrection Foundation, and I'm here with our president and founder, Professor William Jacobson. So let's go ahead and jump in. Kind of an odd news week. Of course, the leading story are the Palisades Fires and what just a monumental disaster that has been out in California. I think you would probably have to have been in a cave to at least not be aware of what's happening there, where so much of that area is just gone at this point. Horror stories of people being caught in their homes, trapped in their homes. I mean, it is truly nightmare fuel when you look at some of the videos and things coming out of this, and especially it being such a densely populated area too. And of course, there's so much to be said about it. The disaster is terrible. We don't wish that on anyone ever. But then we have to look at the facts about how this came about, what happened, how could this have been prevented? And when we do start looking at things like that, this becomes an even more egregious problem, and that there were so many things that could have been done to at least have headed this off at the pass so that this wouldn't have turned into the monumental disaster that it is, and none of those things happened. So just to kind of set the stage there, let's start with this whole Republicans pounce. We see that every single time there's something that happens under Democratic leadership that is verifiably bad. You know, funding was there, but projects weren't taken care of. Priorities were wrong. And all of these things happen under Democratic leadership, which ultimately leads to a massive, major disaster. Republicans point this out as an objective fact, and then are accused for pouncing on, trying to seize an opportunity here to politicize an issue.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the fire, California is not new in terms of having wildfires. I mean, it's something is going to happen, which makes it all the worse that they laid the conditions for it to be catastrophic. I mean, this is a known phenomenon in California. It's like, tornadoes in Oklahoma. We know it happens. And therefore, you should have a program that minimizes the risk and prepares for containment. None of that was done. Water was not properly managed. The reservoirs, the last couple of years, California had record snowfall in the mountains and plenty of water, but it's not in the right places because of environmental lawsuits and environmental policies of the California government, the left wing of the Democratic Party. You can't touch the forests, you can't clean them up, you can't remove the debris. Just at every single level, then you have the lack of training, the lack of plan for containment. You have the LA Fire Department obsessing over DEI. At every level, this catastrophe is really shows the incompetence of Governor Newsom, of a state that is 100% run by Democrats. They have a supermajority of Democrats. This is the failure of the Democrat state, and it's open for display. And unfortunately, and we should take no joy in this, it hit areas that are liberal Hollywood areas. And, that's not to mock people or do anything like that. But they voted for these policies. They voted for the extreme environmentalism, which turns out to actually be a negative. And people have to understand that electing, Newsom and the crazy legislators in California and in New York State and many blue states has consequences. So, but when you point that all out, what do they say? Not, we need to do better. Yes, you're right. We're sorry. That's not their reaction. The reaction is, you, the Republicans, are politicizing this. Okay, like they didn't politicize Hurricane Katrina. Okay,
Don't even get me started.
at all. And so that's it. This is the classic, somewhat tongue-in-cheek, when we make fun of it, Republicans pounce. There's somebody who goes by the name Jim Treacher. That's not his real name, but he's very well known from the blogosphere. And now I'm not sure where he is, but he's got a great Twitter account. And I think it was him who tweeted many years ago that when Republicans mess up, Republicans are the media story. When
Mm-hmm.
Democrats mess up, Republican reaction is the media story. And
Yes,
it's playing out
100%.
right now. Their whole media coverage is at least equal about how Republicans are reacting rather than how Democrats screwed up.
Oh, I mean, every single time we see this over and over and over again. Because the problem with much of modern liberalism is that while it sounds good in theory, the real life results are catastrophic. I mean, look at crime rates in all of our major cities that are all Democratic run. They want to defund the police, they want to do all of these things, and murder rates have skyrocketed. They want to open the borders so states like mine, Texas, the greatest republic in the nation, start shipping people out to these locales, and they don't want any part of it. And that exact policy that they want to impress on everyone else ends up wreaking havoc in their own cities. So these things sound like good ideas, but they are not practically applicable at all. And that needs to be noted and that needs to be pointed out. And it's not overly politicizing a disaster to do that, because we have to study governance. We have to study and learn from decisions that are made and what the repercussions, ramifications, consequences of those decisions are, whether they're good or bad. And these have just been, it's so devastating. And my heart truly breaks for these people, because I don't believe many fully understand that this was 100% avoidable, but they voted for all of this. They made decisions that ultimately led to this destruction. And there's no way that's not heartbreaking. I mean, you don't ever want to see someone lose everything in the way that I don't even know what the counts are on how many homes have been lost. I don't even know what the counts are on fatalities, injuries, anything like that. And for many of these people too, I know we covered this on the blog. It was a very curious thing that happened sometime last year, I think, where all of these homeowner policies were dropped. Insurance companies were pulling out of California for various reasons. And so if for some reason they were not able to obtain other insurance, I mean, I have no idea what the aftermath is going to look like in terms of cleanup and in terms of these families and these individuals and their ability to put their life back together after something like this. And it's truly heartbreaking in every sense of the word. Yet somehow, despite all of this, we even have anti-Israel things popping up with this. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
So there is a movement, and it's been going on for 2 decades that we've covered a lot, um, where the anti-Israel cause tries to hijack every issue that comes up. They tried to hijack the Ferguson riots. I think that's the first time we covered it in 2014, after Michael Brown was shot because he attacked a policeman. And what happens? The anti-Israel people infiltrate the riots, turn them against Israel, like Israel had anything to do with the shooting of Michael Brown. And then they invent cockamamie theories. They even have programs running on campuses now blaming Israel for U.S. policing. But they do this every single time. They hijack the women's movement. They hijack the Me Too movement. They hijack absolutely everything. It's no surprise that groups like Code Pink and others that I've seen on X, Twitter, are saying, hey, you know, uh, look at Gaza, Pacific Palisades looks like Gaza. I wish we had saved some of the money we gave to Israel to destroy Gaza to protect our own people. One has nothing to do with the other. It was not a lack of federal money that led to the California disaster. It was not the money given to Israel for self-defense after October 7th. Um, just like it's not the money that's given over. I just tweeted this today because I looked it up. In just the last 4 years, $2 billion have been given to the Palestinians. They didn't cause the fire in California any more than the military aid to Israel. And of course, the military aid to Israel, close to 100%, has to be spent in the United States or on joint programs with the United States. Military aid, this is the big secret that people don't seem to understand. Military aid to Israel in particular is essentially a subsidy for the US defense contractors. It creates
Mm-hmm.
jobs here. Economic aid, like given to the Palestinians, doesn't get spent here. It goes to Swiss bank accounts. It goes to Hamas indirectly. It goes to pay people salaries when they get imprisoned by Israel. Some of it may actually get to the Palestinians, but zero of it creates American jobs. And so you take something which is the reverse of true. The military aid to Israel has zero to do with these fires, and you try to make it the issue. And we've seen this. And this is not just with the fires. Since October 7th, there have been a lot of these really, slimy people on the internet who purport to have credibility, who are always saying, oh, that aid to Israel, we should be helping our own people. Well, you know what? We can do both. Israel's a unique situation in that it was attacked. It's a very close cooperation with our military. One has nothing to do with the other. So, between Republicans pounce and anti-Israel people trying to make the fire in California caused by the Democrats who run the state about military aid to Israel, it just shows how pathetic things have become.
It's so sad. I mean, I know we've talked about this before too, about the liberal penchant for projection. That anytime they're accusing Republicans of something, it's the exact same thing that they're doing, right? They're going to accuse Republicans of pouncing on things. And we joke about it, but it's because they're the first to rush to politicize anything, everything. And it's just, to me, part of why I hate that so much is that it really diminishes the problem at hand. So rather than discussing how are we going to get past this disaster, what are we going to do to help these people, what help can be given, what is this going to look like, how do you rebuild a major part of a huge city, we're talking about these other things instead. They're complete and total distractions from the actual life that needs to be done here. And it's very frustrating that those kinds of things come in and diminish the opportunity to talk about what went wrong, talk about what can be prevented next time, and how to get people help. But moving on from that, kind of similarly related too, is that the Laken Riley Act passed in both the House and Senate to crack down on illegal immigration. And I mean, this shouldn't even be something that has to be written into law, because we do have laws that are supposed to protect our national sovereignty, which of course includes our borders. And yet here we are. What were your thoughts on that and the legislation?
That's the biggest no-brainer. Easy yes vote. There should be in the history of the Congress. Okay,
Right.
deport people who are in the country illegally and who commit crimes while here. Okay, not deport everyone who's here illegally, but deport the ones who are here illegally and commit crimes. This really needs to be wrapped around the neck of all of the Democrats who voted against it. It's unclear how many will vote against it in the Senate, but there was a significant number. I think it was 72, 73 in the House, including, I believe, both representatives from Rhode Island who voted against this. I mean, what you're saying is you want your constituents to be crime victims.
Yes.
There's no other explanation for it. It is more important to you to preserve illegal immigration into the country than it is to protect your constituents. And that needs to be, who will remember it 2 years from now? I don't know, but people need to remember it. The Democrats who voted against the Laken Riley Act to deport people in the country illegally and who commit crimes, they really need to be thrown out of office. I mean, these are
All
terrible,
159 of them. Yes.
so we'll see. I mean, you're saying 159 voted against it?
Yes. In the
Oh, I
House.
thought it was 70 something. Okay.
No, I think it was 159.
Okay.
We'll
Well,
check my math.
regardless,
I think it was.
they all need to be held to account. Every crime that gets committed by an illegal alien is on them.
It's just pathetic. I mean, it's truly pathetic. And part of what I hate too is what this does to people who are in the country legally. Because in a past life, I worked in immigration law and I processed multiple, I mean, all different kinds of petitions for very skilled people who were in the country legally, um, to work and in various fields, whether it was medical research or engineering or things like that. And these people, so if they get pulled over with a DUI, they're out. There's no visa renewal for them because that's considered a crime of moral turpitude. And so we're holding these people who are genuinely contributing to society to a very different standard than everybody else. It's not right. And it's not just it's the expense, it's the stress, it's the all of this that you go through in the immigration process, which I will say, having lived as an expat myself and having traveled abroad pretty extensively, is nothing like living in other countries where they are far less lenient and far less kind and far more particular about things than we are here, regardless. It's not right. You know, there's no way to make this right. And I don't understand why this is. I mean, I do understand, but this should not at all be controversial. Not even in the slightest. But I'm glad it did pass despite such great democratic opposition to protecting our national sovereignty. But if we have no national sovereignty, we have no country, you know? So, and then this just kind of cracks me up too, that Facebook, or Meta as it's called now, drops their fact checkers and promises to embrace free speech. How many congressional hearings have we watched where they were swearing up and down that they were not inhibiting free speech, that they were not, you know, doing anything with skewed, or they weren't skewing fact checking, which we all know is completely false. The number of times we as an organization have tangled with Facebook over ridiculous things. I mean, there have been so many times where we would be posting an article where we had quoted another news source talking about something like climate change or whatever, and then our content would get flagged because they disagreed with our assessment, even though we are linking from a source like Bloomberg or Newsweek. I mean, these are not right-leaning outlets. And so, I mean, this whole thing, and really, I'm sure it has to be about money, because there's no way with all of the new technology that's popped up and new platforms and new outlets, social media has moved beyond Facebook. And I mean, I remember I was in college when Facebook happened. And Facebook, when it was first created, was just a thing for college kids. And we would get together and set up study meetings and, you know, things like that. And it was this quasi MySpace type place. And I remember it being a super weird thing when parents started getting on Facebook, because that was never the intention of the platform when it was created. But anyway, to see the evolution of it over the years, and to see how they how badly they botched things around election time over the years, how much money they raked in through advertisement, only to just out of nowhere switch algorithms and screw everyone over that had spent gazillions of dollars collectively in advertising on their platform. They run into lots of different challenges. I know that, what was it, a couple years ago, they reached out to do some conservative summit of some kind where they wanted to try and smooth things over, because the fact checking never errs on the side of conservative ideology. It's always the exact opposite, intentionally so.
Yeah, I mean, Facebook's been something of a disaster for us. We spent a fair amount of money many years ago doing quasi advertising to get followers on Facebook, and we built it up, uh, likes, I guess it would be, to over 300,000. And there was a time, uh, the mid 2010s, 2015, 16, maybe even 17, where Facebook was 10 to 15% of our traffic. We weren't dependent on it, but that's significant. And then they changed something or multiple things, and it got reduced to close to zero. And
Yes.
just to give you an example, every Christmas Eve, I used to run a post, Christmas Eve in the Ardennes, about the Battle of the Bulge. And for several years running, we would get several hundred to sometimes over 1,000 shares of it. As soon as they changed whatever it is they changed, we literally got like 10 shares. We have 300,000 followers, people who have made the decision to follow us on Facebook, yet our posts get shown to maybe 5,000 people if we're lucky. It's a
Mm,
disaster. And then during COVID, we stopped really posting anything on Facebook about COVID. And because we'd get a fact check, we'd get a screen, we'd get a strike. You get 3 strikes and they suspend you. We stopped posting anything about climate change because of these stupid, ridiculous fact checkers who were just wrong and have been proven to be wrong. So we just stopped posting a lot of material on Facebook because of this culture they created of dishonest fact checkers who were pushing a party line. Uh, I don't know. Maybe it'll change what we do now. Maybe we'll start doing better. Uh, but Facebook is kind of lost to us, and that's a shame because it's in many ways our natural market. I mean, I'd love to have a large TikTok following, but one, we don't have a TikTok account because none of us want to put it on our phone. We're all scared of it.
it's
But two,
true. I refuse.
but two, Facebook is kind of more, Gen X, late boomers. It's not a Gen Z crowd. Uh, I'm not even sure it's, early millennial crowd. Uh, so, but that's our natural market. And it became useless to us because of the repressive regime from Facebook between changing the algorithms, throttling people just generally because they were conservative, and uh, strike and the fact checking system, which was biased. So I'm hoping this is a good move. Uh, I'm not certain it will be. I don't know. On X, formerly Twitter, there have been benefits and downsides to them loosening things up. I mean, the benefits are that, you're really much less at risk unless you threaten somebody or you threaten to blow something up. You're probably not going to get your account suspended.
Right.
Um, the downside is you have certain personalities who've come back who are just vile people, vile anti-Jewish people spreading insane, conspiracy theories, including, Candace Owens about Jews, and, really just bizarre, almost protocols of the elders of Zion type material that she
Yes.
spreads, and there's no repercussions. She's allowed to do it. On the one hand, I'm glad we know she's doing it. On the other hand, that's the give and take with free speech, is that you end up letting a lot of hateful people gain traction, and particularly on the Israel uh, angle. There's people like this guy, I can't even remember his Jackson Hinkle. There's other people who just make stuff up. Okay, they literally just make stuff up, and they've
Hmm.
got millions of followers. So that's the frustration, and I think that could happen on Facebook, depending what standards they impose and how they enforce them. But that is the concern a lot of people have, is that you're providing a platform with billions of users, um, and so yeah, I'm all in favor of it. I think on balance, it's better, okay, because it's not like these people didn't have a platform; they just did it elsewhere. But that is the concern.
Oh, 100%. I also think, though, that they see the writing on the wall with Trump coming in to office again. And I'm
Yes.
not sure what he's threatened them with or if there has been a threat, but they have to know something is coming. And I believe, I mean, I have zero evidence of this. It just occurred to me that they are probably trying to head something off at the pass so that then they're not the ones getting their hands slapped. They've been proactive in taking whatever action they would have been required to take anyway. And at least this
Yeah,
way they avoid whatever's coming.
Yeah, they're not doing it out of the goodness of their hearts or because they've had a great awakening.
Right.
It's They see the political winds shifting, and just as they capitulated to the Biden administration, we now know uh, they don't want to be put in the same position with Trump. And so
Yes.
when if a Trump administration person were to come to them, they can now say, "Oh no, we have free speech policies now, et cetera, et cetera." So yeah, I agree. We'll see how it sorts out. Hopefully, it will be good for us. Anybody watching this, please follow us on Facebook and Twitter/X. We need followers, but hopefully they'll stop throttling our stuff and actually show our stuff to people.
Yes, I hope so too. If not, I mean, we'll just move on
Yeah,
as these
we'll put
things go.
TikTok on your phone. We'll put TikTok on your phone.
No, we'll buy a burner phone for the
Yeah,
foundation and we'll play with it there so that no one's implicated.
yeah.
Um, but moving on, so we've had a lot happening with our friends up north, with Justin Trudeau's resignation, and of course Trump joking about adopting Canada as another state, as well. I think it seems awfully cold up there. I mean, I'm in Texas and it's very, very cold this week and I'm done. I'm done. I can't imagine that being the norm. But anyway, weather aside, I'm not sure if this is a good or bad thing. I think what's been very interesting, and I figured we would see a lot more of this leading up, just like with Facebook. There's a lot of preemptive action ahead of Trump being inaugurated in a week and a half. So I don't know if this is directly related, indirectly related part of the equation, but it has happened. And so I believe the way it works there, he resigns as the party leader, which means they're able to bring someone else in. It's probably for the best in Canada, but I honestly don't follow Canadian politics outside of the ridiculous things that he does and says. So, what are your thoughts first on Canada before we start getting to some of these other things that Trump has hinted at adding?
Well, I don't think we should make it a state, okay? Because it's going to be a blue state, and we don't need that, okay? If I thought it would be a red state, maybe you could convince me. It's just going to be a blue state, probably based on population with as many electoral votes, I think, as maybe Florida, you know?
Yeah,
I mean, I think there's 20 million people in Canada. I don't know how many are in Florida. I think it's about 20 million. Somebody can fact check me on that. But we don't need a blue state with 10 to 20 or more, representatives in Congress and electoral votes. So to me, absorbing Canada and making it the 51st state is not viable. And
and
I
without
will
free
say,
speech traditions like what we have too,
yeah,
that's a huge problem there.
and Canada, I was reading, has a made, you think we have an immigration problem?
Oh, theirs
They
is
are
terrible.
44% foreign born in Canada.
Yes.
Okay. Canada doesn't really exist anymore. And that was Justin Trudeau's mission. He stated that he doesn't believe that Canada as an independent identity should exist. And he's destroyed it.
Yeah.
Canada is basically gone. I'm not saying it's too late for them to pull back, but they're almost half foreign born. In the United States, I think it's 14%, and that's a record high. Okay, very
Yes.
different. In Canada and the Canadian as a distinct national identity has been destroyed by Justin Trudeau. So we don't need that. And I'm going to say this with the preface, I'm kind of half joking, but we could make it like American Samoa, where we control it and they are
A
not citizens,
territory.
so they don't get a vote.
Yeah.
Okay. Either that or we should maybe break it up. Let's just take the oil and gas and timber parts of it, okay, that have very sparse population, uh, absorb that into some state that's heavily red so it won't tip the balance. Spin off Quebec because they always wanted their own country anyway.
Yeah,
Spring off,
let them be.
we could take Newfoundland, and the other territory up there that I'm just blanking out on the name, and
British
merge
Columbia.
British Columbia is the other side.
Yeah, the
Okay,
other side. Oh, you're
it's
talking about on
whatever the other territory is next to Newfoundland,
mm-hmm.
Nova Scotia,
Yes.
and we should merge them into the newly created protectorate of Greenland. Okay,
I'd like to get
so
our homeschool group to take a field trip to Greenland. That would be fun. That would be a lot of fun.
yeah, Greenland's one of those places. I mean, I don't know if this story is true, reportedly, hundreds of years ago, they named Iceland, which is lush and green, Iceland, so nobody would want to go there, and
I believe
Greenland, which
it.
is basically one large ice cube, okay,
Right?
as Greenland, when it's not. So no, we don't need Canada. I think this is Trump diminishing Canada as a
Yeah,
negotiating opponent for
I
whatever
agree.
trade talks go on, because and perhaps military also, perhaps giving us a greater role. Although I think the two militaries get along just fine, from everything I
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
It's the reason he called Marco Rubio during the 2016 primaries Little Marco. Okay, so now it's Governor Trudeau. Okay, it's just we're low energy Jeb, low
Yes.
energy Canada. We got to do something about low energy Canada, and so that's I think all it is. I think it's a distraction. I think it's Trump being Trump. It's hysterical. Okay, we've
That is
all
very
at one time or another kind of made fun of Canada. I remember I used to say, after I made a trip to Canada, it's almost like a foreign country.
yeah.
So,
And their bacon and coffee are definitely subpar.
yeah,
So
and so, but that brings us to Greenland, which I think is a fascinating move because I think he's going to get that done.
I
Okay,
think so too.
I do. He's going to get Greenland done. He brought it up years ago. He's never let it go. Um, it's got a small population. It's not its own country. It's again, I'm not sure, a territory or protectorate of Denmark. Denmark can't stand up to us. I mean, if we started putting tariffs on their butter cookies, okay, they'd
Yeah.
get destroyed. Those tins of butter cookies from Denmark. I think they're from Denmark that you see in all the stores. Um, so he's
The
ready to
double
pick
as
a fight.
sewing kits. Yeah.
Yeah, he's ready to pick a fight with Denmark. Uh, and from what I'm reading, they're worried, okay, because it's not a fight they can win. And so I think there is a significant possibility that we absorb Greenland not as a state. I mean, it's only got 40 or 50,000 people. I mean,
Right.
you know, it would be like making a small town a state. Uh,
Right.
but uh, but I could see it some sort of special relationship. Maybe the end result would be some deal with Denmark that they nominally retain some control over it. We're titled to Greenland, but we basically run the show there. Okay.
Right.
Um, and there was a very funny graphic created that was shared widely on X, um, of about Trump and how he's going to build Mara Igloo on Greenland.
I
the,
saw that.
the
That was
Mar-a-Lago Mara Igloo on Greenland. But I think Greenland's going to get done. As odd as it sounds, I think Greenland's going to get done. I also think the Gulf of America is going to get done. Now,
wrong.
how do
Gulf
you?
of Texas. Gulf of
No,
Texas.
we're not giving the Gulf of Texas. That's not going to happen.
Gulf of
Uh,
Texas.
you know, uh, so Gulf of America, how do you change the name of something that doesn't have actually a name? Okay. He simply orders all federal agencies. He issues an executive order to all federal agencies and all recipients of grants from federal agencies,
To refer to it
including states, including states and municipalities,
Mhm.
that they lose their funding. So first he orders the federal bureaucracy to start referring to it on maps and everywhere as Gulf of America. Then he orders that anyone receiving money from us, including foreign governments, have to call it Gulf of America or they lose the funding. And you know what? The left has been changing names on everything. Okay.
Yes.
And all of a sudden, 2, 3 years of calling it Gulf of America, now it's Gulf of America.
Yeah.
I think so. Greenland becoming some level of protectorate of the United States. Again, what that means, I don't know. Is it Puerto Rico? Is it American Samoa? My guess is it's an American Samoa sort of model. that they have
Hmm.
self-government under our protection, but they're not citizens of the United States. I think that's probably the model, given the small population. Um, and Gulf of America. I think those are getting done, but Canada will not be a 51st state.
I agree with that. I don't want them to be a 51st state either. I mean, they can just hang out in the cold. It's gorgeous. I mean, every place I've ever been in Canada is beautiful. People are nice, but it's not America. It's just not the same. It's just not
Yep.
the same. They need to keep doing their thing and we'll keep doing ours, and hopefully we can continue to get along. Not that I'm afraid of any conflict there. It's just, I don't think that would make sense to us necessarily, but yeah, there's a whole it half-heartedly joking because if you are not familiar with Texas culture, if you run into a native Texan, as I am abroad, and you ask them where they're from, this is 100% true. Um, they will not say that they're American. They will say that they're Texan because Texans identify as Texans first and Americans second. It's just our way down here. And so I've seen many things about this online, which just make me chuckle about, and renaming it the Gulf of Texas, since the Texas coastline does make up the majority of the Gulf anyway. May as well call it the Gulf of Texas.
But Panama Canal we haven't talked about, and that I think is
Yes,
significant. And Panama
it is.
Canal, and I didn't even realize this. There are two treaties apparently of the Panama Canal. One of them is a treaty where we basically gave it back to Panama. Shouldn't they gave it back to them? We built it.
No, that
We
was a
gave
Jimmy Carter thing. Yes, yes.
we gave it to Panama. But there's another one that provides, and I've only read accounts of it. In fairness, I haven't read the actual treaty, but I've seen accounts given of it. The second treaty gives us the right to maintain military control of the Panama Canal should it be threatened. And I think Trump's always smarter than people let on. Okay,
He
he's been
is.
saying it's controlled by China. That's a military threat to us. So he
Mm-hmm.
knows there's the second treaty that most Americans don't know about. I didn't think about it. No reason to even look into it. And so I think there is a very real possibility that he will say to Panama, you either kick the Chinese out or we're taking it over. We're invoking our rights under this treaty, okay, that you are bound by, and we're taking it over unless you kick China out. And
And it puts a major squeeze. So I do have family that's involved in import business, right? And I mean, there's so many pieces that go into this with freight costs, which of course increase cost of goods, but also shipping delays, especially post COVID. Almost everything that is delayed getting to the US is backed up in the Panama Canal. And I mean backed up for weeks because of the people down there who control what can come through, who goes first, when, how, all of that. So there's so much that's directly affecting us as consumers in our domestic economy that we're not even aware of, that is all directly connected to the Panama Canal. It's a very big deal. It's a very big deal. And the fact that he's targeting this as what seems to be, somewhat of a first priority, I think is amazing, and could eventually, it would take a little bit to see the rewards from any action he takes there, but you will see direct and real change in things as a result of that too. So that would be huge for us. Uh, Anything else on new territories? Are we
now
good
just got
there?
upcoming confirmation hearings. I think
Yeah, yeah.
virtually all the nominees will get through. It looks like Pete Hegseth likely will get through. I think he was
Mm-hmm.
one of the ones there was a big question about. Um,
No, there was not. So yes, there was a question, but I think we need to also keep this in the right context. There was only a question because the Democrats flipped out about him and tried to make him questionable where he
yeah,
shouldn't be.
yeah, that's what I'm. But nonetheless, there was political question whether he'd lose too many Republicans. Forget the Democrats.
Right.
I always assumed they'd be close to, if not 100% no on him. Although I could see a guy like Fetterman approving him. Yeah, but it looks like he's not going to lose three Republicans, four If he loses four, he's gone.
Yeah.
Because if it's three, it's 50-50, and Vance cast the tiebreaker.
And I
So
don't
I
know
don't
that
know.
I
I
don't
don't know
think
who.
they would still have him in that slot if they weren't fairly certain he'd have the votes to get through confirmation.
Yeah, I'm not sure who else could have a problem. I think RFK Jr.'s getting through. Um, uh, Tulsi Gabbard, I could see her losing Republican votes. I could see her losing Republican votes and
Yeah, like
not
we've talked
not
about, she's a little
gaining not
sus.
gaining Democrat votes. So losing, will she lose four? I don't know, but I would say as the landscape looks now, I would say she is the most at risk.
Well, by the time we reconvene next week, most of these confirmation hearings should be done. It's stacked pretty thick though, because so far we have Rubio, Ratcliffe, Nome, and Bondi scheduled for Wednesday. But I look forward to being able to discuss this further and talk about whatever insanity comes out of these confirmation hearings, because there's no way they're not going to be crazy, especially with Democrats being so outrageously desperate these days. But I do look forward to watching those and chatting with you about them next week. And I think with that, that's all we have up to today. I'm sure tomorrow will probably be crazy because there wasn't just a whole lot of crazy stuff to talk about today. It seems to be the way it works. Or as soon as we're done recording, we'll get all kinds of stuff coming in. But we'll be able to talk about those next week. So if you are listening and you enjoy this content, please be sure to like, share, do all of those things. Click all of the buttons, just not the ones that say report, please. And this concludes episode 19. We have blogged about everything that we discussed today on the Legal Insurrection blog. You can find all of these stories and more at legalinsurrection.com. And you can learn, if you're listening to us, you can learn more about this episode, links to the stories that we've discussed, and more about who we are at legalinsurrection.com/19. And with that, we are out. We will be back next week. Bye-bye.